we found out this week that one of the major hospitals in northern Gaza, Al-Shifa Hospital, according to both the U.S. and Israeli officials, Hamas is not only sort of in this hospital, they're underneath it too. And so they have essentially made this hospital one of their command posts, the logic being it's a lot harder for Israeli military troops to avoid civilian casualties if Hamas is based within those populations.
Right.
And so we heard President Biden say this was a war crime. And the premise is Hamas is okay with Israel killing Palestinians.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, we've seen a lot of new developments in Israel, the war in Gaza, and we had a pretty, I think, significant revelation this week. Talk a little bit about what it is that we discovered.
So what we've known for a while is that Hamas likes to use what we would consider protected civilian infrastructures, think schools, hospitals, mosques, to essentially hide not only themselves, but their weapons, their military capabilities. And so we found out this week that one of the major hospitals in northern Gaza, Al-Shifa Hospital, according to both the U.S. and Israeli officials, Hamas is not only sort of in this hospital, they're underneath it too. And so they have essentially made this hospital one of their command posts, the logic being it's a lot harder for Israeli military troops to avoid civilian casualties if Hamas is based within those populations.
Right.
And so we heard President Biden say this was a war crime. And the premise is Hamas is okay with Israel killing Palestinians because they can then use that for their propaganda, whereas even if Hamas is not valuing the lives of civilian Gazans, the Israeli military still has an international legal obligation to do so. And so Hamas puts them in a difficult position of making that very hard for them. And so Israel launched this operation to sort of get into and then destroy this command post within the hospital. And so there was fighting outside it. And this is an active hospital. There are people being treated.
Right.
There are tens of thousands of wounded people in this conflict. So they're flooding to the hospitals. So this is not, this is a very densely populated hospital. There are people who are sheltering within it that don't need treatment, but are just afraid of the war that's going on around them. And so Israeli forces went in and they raided it. For the most part, there didn't seem to be many injuries or casualties, and Israel's now in control of this hospital. And so this is one example of Israel going in, and as President Biden said, in a very precise way, which has been something that has garnered a lot of consternation internationally. They went in very precisely. There was some back and forth with Hamas, but they now have control, and Hamas doesn't.
So there's been a lot of focus during this war on the tactics being used by both Israel and Hamas and how that affects the civilian population of Gaza. How has the discovery at the hospital sort of affected that discourse?
What we found at the hospital essentially confirms what we've known from previous reporting and previous conflicts, previous iterations of fighting between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, a U.S. designated terrorist organization, they choose to embed themselves within the communities, the most densely populated civilian Palestinian communities, because, as I mentioned, they are more than fine with innocent civilians being harmed or killed. That way they can use it to further their message. Even though they're in power in Gaza, they don't necessarily care about average Gazan civilians. And so this has put a lot of pressure on Israel to go above and beyond, as the U.S. has said, to ensure that civilians don't get hurt. Now, they haven't always done that throughout the course of this now 5.5, 6 week long conflict. We've seen an overwhelming amount of civilian deaths. We've seen that number, according to people on the ground controlled by Hamas, that number exceeds 10,000. Now, we've heard from U.S. officials that it's definitely in the thousands, but it's obviously, this is an active war zone. It's really difficult to tally the number of dead, and the total that Hamas has given out does not differentiate between civilians and terrorists.
So there's been a development in another hotspot in the world in terms of our relationship with China that I think a lot of people in the national security community view as a positive. Talk about that a little bit.
Earlier this week, President Biden met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and one of the primary takeaways from this meeting was that both sides agreed to restart their military-to-military communications. And so what that means is Secretary Austin, for the last about 14 or 15 months, whenever he would try and reach his Chinese counterpart, they would ignore it. And that went, that was a similar situation of events for all U.S. military officials. It was a blanket rejection. And this dates back to then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan last summer.
Right.
And so at that time, in protest of that trip, they ended the communications. And so that's the first basis, is that they will be slowly restarting these talks and conversations between U.S. and Chinese military officials. But this is a very significant part of a larger or broader picture of the U.S. and China military relationship, more broadly speaking. And so over the last couple of years, we've seen nearly 200 instances of Chinese either pilots or naval vessels intercept U.S. either fighter jets or naval vessels in the region. And these are both unsafe, unprofessional, and they could lead to escalation. And so as the frequency of these incidents had been occurring, there was no way for the U.S. to either express their outrage or even tell them to knock it off, because these military communication lines weren't open.
Well, it's a potentially dangerous situation to not have the communications.
Absolutely. And so there was a threat that, a seemingly normal situation could escalate very quickly because there was no way to deconflict. And so this is a small step. It doesn't change the Pentagon's overall assessment that China is its biggest threat globally, or that they are modernizing at a very rapid pace, and they consider them the pacing challenge. And so it doesn't change the threat that China poses, but it provides a necessary and needed off-ramp that they haven't had.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.